And then, with this new record with Mick Fleetwood, of course, if you know Mick, you'll know that he's a Hawaii guy. And so, how did you first meet him, and then how did it come together to do an album with him?
Yeah, so of course I've always been a huge Fleetwood Mac. I've always been a huge fan of Fleetwood Mac, and Mick Fleetwood lived on Maui, for over 20 years. I mean, he's been such a big part of the community there, and so supportive of a lot of the local musicians there. Um, and so we had met years ago, and then but in the last couple years again we really connected. I went to go see their Fleetwood Mac reunion tour in Nashville, and the show was amazing, and I got to talk with Mick backstage. And then after that, fast forward another year, I did a show on Maui, and Mick and his family happened to be in town, so they came out to the show, and then we talked backstage again, and because and then we said, oh man, would love to do something together, and then yeah, then right after that, we talked about just kind of setting up some time in the recording studio and just see what would happen, and so um we didn't really have like any very detailed plans of what we are going to do. We just thought we'll get together, for a week, and just kind of play and just hit record and see what would happen. So that's how this project came about, and it was just for me, it was such an eye-opening experience. And to play with Mick Fleetwood, he's the kind of musician that has that energy and that quality about him, that he's able to elevate, everyone around him. So when you play with him, and he just like brings out your best, and he motivates you to play it, and do things that you've never done before. And that's how I felt with this record. He really encouraged me to just kind of go for it, and just feel it. And his the way he plays the drums, man. Oh, you just get this rush, and we just had the best time. I'm on tour right now with Jackson Waldhoff, this wonderful bass player from Hawaii, and he's also on this new Blues Experience record. And yeah, we often talk about that experience because it was unlike anything we've ever experienced in the studio before. So I'm really excited about this record. It's called the Blues Experience because it kind of we did like a couple of early uh, Fleetwood Mac covers, like the when Peter Green was with the band, and the original Fleetwood Mac. And then we did like some Albert King and Gary Moore, some Jeff Beck, and so just yeah, just really excited about it. It was very experimental. I did a lot of electric ukulele stuff with some wah and some long delay, kind of ambient things. So hopefully people like it. It was definitely a stretch for me, and kind of pulled me out of my comfort zone for a little bit. But like I said in the beginning, that's what it's all about, right? You want to just keep having those opportunities to kind of step outside of your comfort zone, and it was just a beautiful, beautiful experience.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's funny when you're talking about Mick there, because I saw Fleetwood Mac on their last tour when they played here in my hometown of Calgary. Um,
Mm.
and that was like 2019. And I thought Mick was like the most entertaining part of the show. Like his drum solo was amazing, and it's like, he's really he's really impressive when you think about it, because he's kind of the last of that generation of like late 60s drummers, right? He was right up there with Bonham and Keith Moon and Mitch Mitchell. And, he's really like the last one of those guys still around, and still, still doing his thing, which is amazing. Um, and, with, as it is right now, we've got two singles out for this record. Um, which you can find on your YouTube channel if anyone's interested. But there's Whiter Shade of Pale and Rollin' and Tumblin'. And I remember when I went to listen to these songs for the first time, I was sort of thinking, oh, is it going to sound like, kind of traditional ukulele, like a traditional ukulele interpretation? But you did these songs justice because you got like full distortion on, and I was like, whoa, he's wailing on these tracks. And
Oh,
yeah, so
thank you.
how did you kind of develop your tones and how you wanted to play these songs?
Yeah, it's just, constant experimentation and just trying different things. I used for this particular record, I used a Fender Princeton amp that Mick had in his studio, and that's the first time that I recorded with that amplifier. Um, and yeah, so there's definitely a brightness to it, and an attack, that's different from my usual stuff. um, but I loved it. Another element that I thought was pretty special is because we were all in the same room. I mean, I was like almost, just sitting right across from Mick Fleetwood. I mean, so we could see, we could make eye contact, and and then Jackson, our bassist, was on my right, and then Michael Grande, who played keys on it, longtime friend of mine as well, he was on my left. And so we were kind of like in this circle, right, like in this diamond. And the amazing thing is, I'm running my uke through all the different effects and the delays, and and the overdrives and all that. My wah pedal. So every time I would use some of my effects, mixed drums. We didn't isolate any of the instruments. So his drum sound was actually feeding into my piezo pickup. So I didn't have an open mic on my ukulele. I have a, piezo pickup under my saddle, and his drums were so loud, so they were actually feeding into the pickup. And when you would, and so his drums were actually, in a subtle way, going through all the different effects and my delays and all of that, right? Every time I was, so the ukulele and the drums are kind of like, they're very much like this. They're just there's this, I don't know, this magical thing. So even if when we were mixing the album, when you would isolate the ukulele track, you could still hear the drums. It was pretty amazing. So I think that added like that really, I don't know, there's this subliminal, almost like uh, live, even more than just live in the studio. This magic, of the two instruments just blending together so well. And so I thought that was really cool. I know it's probably a nightmare for engineers, but I really thought that was such a special thing.
Yeah, it's it's kind of like just the old school garage kind of concept of like just put a mic in the room and pick up not just the band but the room and get all the energy together.
Mhm.
Now it's interesting because you often perform solo. So is it different to kind of work with a band in your case?
Um, yeah, for me, I love playing with drums and bass. I mean, it's my favorite thing in the world. I mean, that to have like to play with a rhythm section like that is so much fun, and I never take it for granted whenever I have those opportunities, but so yeah, so it's always, I mean, every time I get that opportunity, it's like, yes, it's like, yeah, I get so excited. Because normally, like when I tour, especially like early on in my career, I toured completely solo, right? So as a soloist, you kind of have to carry all the different elements, of the song and the arrangement. And then in the last like 10 years, I started incorporating a bass player, and that's been very. I just love the sound of the bass and the ukulele together, because I feel like they kind of complete each other, because the bass is like the left side of the piano, and then the ukulele is like the right side of the piano, right? And so it almost makes like, together they make like a full range instrument. And so I love that sound, and the the textures that we're able to create, right, with the two instruments. So when we do that stuff, a lot of times on the ukulele, I do have to carry more, like play, keep the rhythm going, and play certain chord voicings to fill in the middle voices, and then keep the melody going on top of that, right? So it's a completely different approach. On this record, I'm able to completely get away from that, and I'm free to just play single line melodic, ideas, without having to worry about strumming chords, or you know, playing multiple strings to cover the harmonic side of it. All of that is covered by the keys and the bass, and all the rhythm is, Mick Fleetwood is just driving the band. So it's yeah, it's just a rush, but it allows me to think in a completely different way, and I loved it. I mean, it was just such a rush and an honor, and and scary too, because we're in there with Mick Fleetwood, and all three of us are just like, oh my goodness. So it was but it was just a brilliant experience, and he was just so down to earth, and so gracious, and so kind, and encouraging, like whenever, if something wasn't feeling right, he would just stop. He goes, oh, let's try, let's try this, or maybe, let's take a different approach. So he's just so present, and um and just such a team player. It was beautiful to experience that.